2023 Youth Columbus College Panel event. We are joined by our wonderful panelists, Brian, Dylan, and Catherine. And first off, I would like to thank the youth for putting this together. They worked really hard. And for you guys for joining and listening to our panel. All right, so we're going to start off by discussing the AACO 2023 internship. So now I'll hand it off to Neil.
All right, so I'll be briefly talking about the AACO internship. The internship is an experience for high schoolers to intern at a government office in Ohio, specifically for the Columbus branch. You can go to this site that I just put in the chat to apply. You can work at a government office this summer. It's a great opportunity to learn some real life work skills and just to get to know the government better. So that's about it. And just go to the link and apply so you can have a chance to work at a government office. It's a pretty valuable experience that's from coming from personal experience. So I highly recommend it.
All right, thank you, Neil, for talking about that. And I think registration opens up very soon, so be sure to keep a lookout for that. And now we'll move to introductions. So panelists, would you please introduce yourselves?
Hi guys, I'm Brian. I'm a freshman at Princeton, currently studying operations research and financial engineering. And on campus, I also do Army ROTC.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm currently a freshman at Johns Hopkins, and the plan is at least to do a bio and public health double major with a minor in music. And I'm on the pre-med track.
Hi everyone, my name is Dylan Lee. I am currently a senior at Columbia University in the city of New York. I'm studying statistics and political science. And I am involved in the UNICEF Club on campus, as well as a couple other smaller organizations.
All right, thank you panelists for introducing yourselves. Now we'll move on to the prepared questions. So the first one is about preparation. So if you could go back in time knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently in high school? Are there any skills that you would have done or activities are there any skills that you would have honed in on or activities that you would have explored?
Yeah, I think in general, I probably would have tried to focus more on like making the most out of my time there. The 4 years goes by really, really fast. And like once you're a senior, you realize like, wow, like freshman year feels like yesterday. So in general, I think what that might have looked like would kind of just be like applying to more opportunities, just kind of like getting a better idea of like what's out there, and then really just trying to do whatever I could. As far as like college apps go and like skills, one thing I've noticed is that a lot of colleges, for admissions at least, they don't really care what you do. They care more that like you did it well. So from like in that sense, I think it's one mistake a lot of people make is like they think you have to do things like debate or those like fancy activities, when like you really don't. You should do things that like you enjoy doing and that you think you could really like be good at. And as long as you're able to like somewhat explain why they're relevant to like the major you want to do and your future goals, like you'll be fine. So just in general, like really just try to make the most out of your time and do what you're interested in.
Yeah, I really agree with a lot of what Brian said, because colleges, they really like to see like passion. So if you're just doing a bunch of stuff just to like add to your resume, it doesn't really look that good, because like when you're explaining them, they can tell, because like the admissions officers have so much experience with this stuff. They can tell when you're doing something just because like you feel like you have to. But stuff that I would have worked on, probably like social skills and like networking and stuff like that. Also like less procrastination, because that was a big problem for me, and honestly just like having more fun, because like obviously like, you know, college apps are important and you need to do stuff and like work towards like getting what you want, But like it's really easy to forget to just like chill sometimes and be like a teenager. And I think that's something that like we should all do more like do more often. So
Yeah, so I'm not a very traditional college undergrad. I'm actually currently 26 years old. I'm a senior undergrad. Um, I did badly in high school. I was a C student for most of my time in high school. Uh, and so it's not very traditional for somebody like me to be at an Ivy League university. So honestly, there's a lot that I could have changed in high school that I probably should have changed, but I didn't. But certainly there are things that like they mentioned that you can focus on, like these passions that people look for. If your goal is to get into a top university or a good university, yeah, following your passions and really like pursuing something that you can invest time into and willingly do it, and it can kind of show, especially in interviews, that you do have a passion for it, and it's not just something that you do on the side. Whenever I'm sitting in interviews with people, I think like I've been told after interviews that like the one thing that stood out to me was that you're passionate, like you're passionate about whatever you get involved in, and that's like really important to them. There's a certain curiosity as well, because when you get involved in something that you're passionate about, then you're going to inevitably ask questions. You're inevitably going to get involved and be very curious about whatever you're doing. And I guess always pursuing to know more about the world in general is always a great way to just kind of get involved. When I was in high school, I didn't really know anything about careers. And honestly, like, let's be real here, most of us are going to college because we want to get some sort of decent job. And I had no idea what sort of jobs are out there. Clearly nowadays, I feel like students are a little more aware, but back then I mean, I went to like a generic public school, nothing fancy, and I didn't know anything about jobs. And so I think in high school, we're expected at a very young age to know what we want to do in college, and then because of that, know what we want to do after college. And obviously that's like a ridiculous assumption, but that's how the world works right now, unfortunately. And so I feel like getting involved, asking questions, asking people what they do, asking adults what they do, and what their peers do, is a really great way to kind of get involved and kind of get to like explore the world a little more in that aspect. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to go into college studying one thing and then having to transition between, like, frankly, I transitioned between 4 different degrees. I don't even remember anymore. I lost track. And you don't want to do that. It's not a great lifestyle sometimes. And so explore different interests. Of course, keep like some core passions, but explore outside of that as well. Just see what there is for you to see in the world.
All right, so I guess I'm gonna do the next prepared question. This one is over mental health. I'll first ask the first part. How do you handle the stress of college, and how do you maintain a healthy sleep schedule and daily routine?
I think this is a tricky question, but the second part really enables the first part. So at least from what I've seen, and like it's all about time, right? Like we all have 24 hours in a day. And the hardest part about college, especially for the first year, is trying to figure out how do I fit everything I have to do and I want to do in those 24 hours, and like still somehow finding time for sleep. The biggest thing for me so far, well, the biggest 2 things are, one is finding a routine that works and really sticking to it. So going into college, I realized that I had about like 20 hours of commitments every day, which is like a lot of stuff. But once you kind of like find a routine, for example, like basically every single day of college for me has looked like this like the past semester. So we do our ROTC training from 5 to 8 in the morning. And then like I block out about like an hour for like breakfast, showering. And then I have class until like around 1 p.m., 2 p.m. ish. And then I block out like 3 hours, just like really focus on doing homework. And then, dinner, friends, some more studying. And like I'll make sure I try to get in bed by 11. Never really happens, but that's like the goal. And I feel like having that very strict structured schedule has really helped me to, one, make sure I get everything done, but 2, also like when times get like really stressful, I have something to kind of just like stick to. And I think like that structure becomes really important, especially in those like first few months of college. The second thing is, like there are a lot of things you'll want to do once you get on campus. And the hardest part, especially like the first month, is like deciding what you really want, because realistically, like, you don't have enough time to do everything you want to do and still like get sleep and still have fun. So it really comes down to like finding your priorities. One common phrase is like, you can have good grades, a social life, or sleep, and you can have like 2 of the 3, or at least you can do 2 of the 3 well. So it really comes down to like finding the things that will, 1, make you happy, and 2, be productive, and then like sticking to them instead of doing like a bunch of random different things. As for the second part of the question, how do you maintain your daily routine? A few tips I have would be, 1, really like use a calendar. So when I was in high school, I never used a planner, like never used calendars. I was like a really terrible person when it came to like organization. But I found like using a calendar really, really helps you, 1, like not forget what you have to do, but 2, also just like keep track of things. And I think the stress really builds up when you don't know what you have to do or like what you have coming up, and just like having it all out there really brings you like a peace of mind in a sense. Like, here are like 4 things I have to do today, and I'm just like start on like these few things. And also for the daily routine, I think one other thing that's very important is doing what works for you. So, in college, it's really tempting to do like what your friends do, kind of like follow the schedule like everyone else does, but really everyone's different. And sometimes, well, a lot of the times, what works for you might not work for like your friends or what like the rest of campus does. So like, for example, Princeton's a very late night school. A lot of people will be in the library studying until like 12 or 1. So it's really tempting to go out with your friends and study together. But if I do that, I know that like I will probably be getting like 2 hours of sleep a night, which is not sustainable. So especially during those first few weeks, it's hard to kind of like accept that my schedule might not align with other people's, but I have to do what works for me. And like, you'll find time to hang out with other people. You'll have plenty of time to do those other things, but just make sure like you prioritize yourself first.
Yeah, I think like the biggest thing for me is just kind of like listening to like my body and how I feel. Like, I mean, like obviously I'll try to set a schedule. Like I'll say like, oh, I'll do like this many problems today and like the next day and each day. But like, sometimes you just have like a rough day and you really don't feel like going to the library. So on days like that, I just let myself just like chill in my dorm. And I feel like that helps a lot because it helps me unwind. But also like another thing that's like really helped me with my daily routine and stuff like that. Okay, so I used to procrastinate a lot in high school, which is kind of like a huge problem because you can't do that in college. What I'll do is if I know I have to like go somewhere and like come back to my room, like I'm not gonna want to leave my room, right? So like I will like make plans with my friends before and say, oh hey, do you want to go to the library and like study chemistry or whatever at 7? And then they'll be like, oh yeah, sure. And then by doing that, like, I can't just like go back and stay in my room and not go back to the library because I've already made plans. So that helps a lot because I'm very unmotivated at times. Um, Another thing that's really helped with like a routine is like I've kind of developed a very like work hard, play hard type of attitude. So I don't do homework on the weekends. I try to get all of my homework done on the weekdays. I mean, every now and then something will come up and it doesn't happen, but I think by doing that, it's helped me a lot because that way I can like on weekends I just go and have fun with my friends, and it's really like helpful to help unwind and stuff to keep like stress from building up. And so yeah, I think that's kind of just like my biggest thing is like giving myself time to like chill and have fun. And also in college is like you don't have to spread yourself as thin as you do in high school, because in high school, like you're trying to do like everything because you don't really know what colleges want to see. At least that's how I did it. But like once you get to college, I feel like it's pretty straightforward. Like if you want to go to med school or like grad school, like it's pretty easy to find what they want. So like you don't have to do everything. Just pick a few specific things to focus on so that way you have time to do other stuff. And yeah, and then as for healthy sleep schedule, I don't have the healthiest sleep schedule. I go to bed pretty late, but I think that kind of ties back into the entire like listening to your body type thing because I focus better at night. So I don't try to like force myself to go to bed early and wake up early because that's just not how my brain functions. I mean, if that works for you, that's good. Do that. But I focus best at night, so I try to take all of my classes later in the day, so I go to bed later because I'm more productive at night, and then I just like sleep in. So yeah.
Yeah, I think Brian and Catherine more or less covered everything. There's not much more for me to add, like making sure you have a balanced schedule, listening to your body, keeping a social life to some extent, um, staying reasonably healthy. Those are all things that can kind of benefit you. I think one thing I will say is that, kind of recognize what your goals are. I guess it's kind of like building off my last answer. Recognizing what your goals are for college. Like if you're not trying to go to grad school, if you're not trying to go to a PhD program, if you're not trying to do some top tier post grad work, med school, whatever, if you're not trying to do any of these like really, really elite level things at the end after you graduate, or some harder career like, I don't know, investment banking or high finance or hard tech, then like you don't have to have a 4.0 GPA. Like that's not something that you have to have. I think oftentimes we just get sucked in this mindset of like, yeah, we have to be like at the top of our academic class. Like, is it really worth like hating yourself for 4 years and then realizing like, okay, like I guess I have a little bit of an easier interviewing process, but that's about it. Like, is that really worth it to you? Like life is all about trade-offs. We can't all have everything in the world, right? So sometimes if you recognize that this isn't something that you're trying to gun for after you graduate, then there's no reason to push yourself to the absolute limit. It's great to want to do as much as you can in the world, but like we're all humans, make sure you have your priorities straight. I mean, I've done, like I said, I had a weird academic history, but like you can still accomplish plenty without having the strongest like GPA in the world or whatever. Like I was accepted at like top like finance firms or whatever for jobs and internships, and it wasn't because I had this super strong like resume. I like my GPA right now is a 3.5, which is like decent, but it's not anything to write home about. And I'm sure like both Catherine and Brian have higher GPAs than me. But just make sure you want to prioritize this. I mean, know what you're prioritizing, know what your goals are, and like have those at the top of mind. Because if you're going way above what your goals are, what will make you happy, then is it really the right thing for you to do? So sometimes it's good to kind of take a step back and reevaluate, like, is what I'm doing right now, is this thing right now going to achieve this like moment of happiness in the future for me?
All right, I guess I'll go to the second part of the question. So in continuing on the stress management, do you guys have any specific advice for dealing with stress specifically for high schoolers, right? That especially juniors and seniors right now?
No, I think part of the process starts early, right? Like if you do things in high school that like you genuinely enjoy doing and that like you find really interesting, then or like versus just like doing things that you feel like you have to, then you'll naturally be less stressed. And I feel like especially for like seniors, there are times where the things are just going to be more stressful, and you can kind of lessen the load by getting on top of things. Like for example, if you're starting like if you'll have like the Common App next fall, then like start early, right? Like if you kind of spread it out across multiple months, you're gonna feel like you'll have like you'll feel much better across those months than if you like have 20 essays to write like the week before like EA deadline or something like that. But in general, I'm probably not the best at like giving advice for this. Like I applied to like 3 schools, but I feel like generally speaking, if you like spread out like do things early, do things you actually enjoy. High school generally is like a pretty good time once you can like compare to when like you get into college.
Yeah, I agree with what Brian said. Like definitely plan ahead. Like for me, I mean, I ended up not applying to that many schools because I got into Hopkins ED, but my original plan was to apply to 15 schools. and like you can't really like do all of that at once. So like I like set myself a schedule. Like I was like, oh, I'm gonna do like my Yale supplementals from like December whatever to December whatever, and then like so on with all of my schools. So definitely a lot of like planning makes things a lot more like easy to handle because you're taking it step by step instead of looking at all of it at once, which is really overwhelming. And another thing is just like honestly, sometimes it's okay to like let go of certain things and like not be like super good at certain things. Like for example, GPA wise, I was barely top 10%, but like I focused a lot more on like extracurriculars and stuff like that. So you don't have to be like perfect in every single category. Just pick a couple categories to focus on and then just like do good in all the other ones. Like good as in like decent, not like, you know. But like, like if you're like super stressed out and super busy, it's okay to not turn in a homework here and there as long as you don't do it super often. So just, yeah, I think just figure out how to prioritize things and know that sometimes it's okay to like not be perfect at everything and get exactly what you want.
I guess the question was specifically like stress management and whatnot. Like let loose a little. I think the human body can only take so much stress at once. Like I studied education at one point, and we learned about how anatomically we can only take so much stress at a time because your body releases, I forgot which hormone it was. I'm not a bio student at all. I'm sorry. I didn't do any pre-med. But you release some sort of hormone into your system that basically it's a stress hormone. Is it adrenaline? I don't remember anymore. But anyhow, it goes through your veins, and it basically kind of it helps you survive because that's what evolutionarily wise that's what was supposed to like drive you around whenever you were being chased by like wild animals or whatever. But the problem with it is that it kind of scars the inside of your blood vessels, like the tissue, and that's where like platelets kind of get caught, or something gets caught and eventually gives that buildup and causes you to have heart attack. This is quite literally like a physical, manifestation of being too stressed. We quite literally are not supposed to be that stressed. So if you are feeling like stressed 24/7, that's not good. And unless you want to have a heart attack really early in your life, like, back off a little, take your foot off the pedal just a bit, give yourself some space. And obviously like that's really hard to do because then it's like, but then the stress will build up and it'll get even worse. And maybe, but it's worth like focusing on yourself at the moment, and trying to like address things one at a time. And I think that kind of gets to my next point is like, it's like chunking your priorities, making sure that not only do you know your priorities, but how you break them down, breaking them down into smaller steps and taking that time to like check little steps off, like even just like opening the application. If you need to submit your college apps, that's step one, check it off. You opened it. That's like, and that little shot of like, whatever the happiness, look, I don't remember words. I just know like the general concept, the happiness hormone, it'll give you that little shot that keeps you going. And that little like, that you ride that high across through the entire application process, and it helps a little bit. But really just recognize that being stressed, like maybe in our like very capitalistic focused society, it's like, yay, we're stressed, that means that we're productive, and that means I can like I feel fulfilled or something. Like not always, and it can really lead to like really, really negative outcomes in the future. And so just keep that long-term picture in mind. Life is a marathon, not a race, not a sprint. And like just keep on going. Like there's that little motivational quote about how like 1.0 to the power of 365 is still 1.0, but 1.01 to the power of 365 is like, I don't remember, 6 or something. So like just take that time to take those little steps, and it builds up. And if you don't like falter and you don't completely crash and burn, then it's that buildup is going to really become like exponentially huge over the course of a year.
Kind of like going off of what Dylan said, you made like a really good point. And it made me think about how like a lot of the stress, especially in high school, is like very self-imposed. Like you find things to stress about that like later on in life, you're like, that really didn't matter. Like I remember, at least for me, I was like a really annoying like really annoying to deal with for myself. Like I told myself I needed like a perfect SAT, like I needed to be like rank 1 in my class. I needed to be like a presidential scholar or whatever. And like I got those things, and then I found out like no one really cares. Like colleges don't care. Like I talked to my admissions officer, like he's like they did not care at all. Like they were like, oh yeah, like this kid's smart, we get it. Like let's look at like the rest of his application. And I stressed a lot about those things, and in the end, no one really cared. So it's like, you know, like while you're still in high school, just realize that like a lot of these things, they don't matter as much as you think they do. Like it's like, you know, you should apply yourself, you should try your best, but you don't need to aim for these like specific crazy benchmarks or like, you know, like break your back over these really strange goals. Like at the end of the day, you'll look back and like those aren't the things you'll remember about high school, and stressing about them really just like is not the point. Like it doesn't really matter all that much in the grand scheme of things, like Dylan mentioned.
In fact, if I'm allowed to build off that, I think there's a point to that. Like right now, okay, I'm 26 years old. I'm not going to call myself old, but I am a little older. And I mean, the things that I remember about high school aren't the school part of things. The things I regret were like not taking orchestra as serious as I should have when I was a senior. Like now I'm just like, man, I miss those times when I was on stage with my orchestra and just played with these people that, you know, we built such a strong bond, like 50 of us, just so close. And that those are the things I miss. I don't like, I don't care about what I did in school. Like, I don't care about that assignment, that project that I turned in. Like, oh yeah, I got 100 on it. Like, I don't remember a single 100 project I turned in. Like, okay, obviously I'm like 8 years out of high school or something, but the point remains, like, you're not going to care about those things. Those things do not matter. And okay, they do matter to some extent, but like when you look back at your life, you're not going to be like, oh yeah, that project I got a 100 on, what a pat myself on the back. Like that's not the important stuff, you know? And I think that's important to keep in mind sometimes, that you don't have to stress about it to get that perfect, like I mean, I was a perfectionist at one point until I stopped. But I know, I'm sure plenty of people in this call are as well. But that 2-point difference is not going to make or break any major life decision. No college is going to be like, oh yeah, this person, they only got a 98 on that project. Like, dude, nah, we're not letting them in. No one cares. They care about who you are as a person. If you truly are somebody who can add value to their student population. I talked to some admissions officers, and they craft a student body that they want to see. And it's not, oh yeah, we want all the smart kids. Like they want to have a diversity of background. They want to see people who have really experienced life in ways that most students their age haven't. And there's a certain privilege to be able to do that, but at the same time, there are certain things that you can do that aren't like requisite to have money, and still makes you a unique and value add candidate for any top university. I know plenty of people at my university, like they were like, you know, barely A students in high school, but they did some crazy things. Like I think one of them, he had experience being in jail. Like he was in juvie for a while, but he did really well in school still. And they wanted him at Columbia because it's like, you have a really interesting perspective. I'm not telling you to go to jail, okay? Like let me be clear. That's not necessarily the best route to go to college, but it's just these like different life paths that people can experience, and that's kind of what they're looking for as well.
Yeah, like honestly, like it's fine to have fun. You don't have to be like this perfectly oiled machine who gets like perfect GPAs and does like 20 different super impressive extracurriculars. Like just go hang out with your friends. Develop a personality. Like colleges like seeing that. Colleges like personalities. So like do that.
Awesome. So we have one last prepared question. I think tying this all together, we've had like the panelists have shared really great stuff about how GPA isn't everything. So we want to ask you all, what do you think was the most important part of your admissions that made you stand out or more likely to be accepted? And this can be in regards to writing style, academics, extracurriculars, experiences, all of it.
I have to like think for a moment. That is a hard question. I think the biggest part, aside from just like, well, realistically, you can't like at this point, if you're like a junior or senior, you can't really change like what you've done in high school by all that much. So I think like the most important slash like relevant thing for me was you have to be able to explain how your experiences make you a good fit for your major or like their college community. And I think that's where a lot of people kind of like make or break their applications. Like you can have all these really crazy impressive stats, but if you just like cannot articulate why you belong on their campus or why those experiences are relevant to what you want to do, then you're not a very appealing applicant. But like on the flip side, even if you did a lot of like really cool different things, like like you're not sure if they like really align with like what you want to do. Like if you're able to articulate why that makes you like that would make you a good member of their community, then like that will play a big role in differentiating you from like the other people that are similar to you. And like one thing that I remember, I forgot who it was. I think it was one guy in the admissions office was talking about how like to put things into perspective. I think there are about like 20,000 high schools in the United States. So each year there will be about like 20,000 valedictorians, like class rank ones. There will be another maybe like 10,000 kids with like perfect SATs and ACTs. There will be thousands of like science fair international finalists. There'll be like thousands of people that have like played Carnegie Hall, which believe it or not is actually not that hard to do. And there will be like hundreds of people who've won like international awards and this and that. But and yet somehow if you look around a lot of these college campuses, those aren't really the people you see everywhere, right? So like there's something else that colleges look for that isn't just all on paper, and a lot of it is letting your personality show through and showing the admissions officer why you would be a good fit for their campus. And a lot of it is just like a vibe check. Like admissions really is just them checking your vibe and saying, okay, like this kid is a cool kid and I think people would enjoy being around him. So I think like don't lose sight of the bigger picture and like don't obsess over the things on paper.
I think the thing that helped me the most, which to be fair, I could be wrong, because I do think after a certain point, like a lot of it is based on luck, because you'll have like so many people with like perfect SAT scores and perfect GPAs applying, like it's not really gonna help you too much after a certain point. But I think, at least I assume, the thing that helped me a lot is that I kind of like presented myself as like a person. I had like an image I like wanted to portray, and I focused specifically on that. Like my Common App essay was about like how I was like how like the stuff I went through growing up as an Asian American with like no representation, and how I want to fight for representation and like speak up about issues like that. And all of my supplementals, which Johns Hopkins only had one, but all of my supplementals were also about like like standing up for others, speaking up, and like social justice ish kind of stuff. And I think that fit in with some of my extracurriculars too. Like I had a lot of like leadership stuff, because like looking at my application, I'm definitely not the most impressive person. Like I did not have a perfect GPA. I did not have like world breaking research and stuff like that. But I do think what I had was a personality and like passion that I try to like show. And I think that helps a lot, because they want like, basically colleges, like they look for potential. The only thing they want is for you to do stuff for them. So I think by showing that passion, like they saw that like the potential that I could like go on to do stuff like as a person, versus just a bunch of stats that doesn't really like show much about what you could do in the future. So yeah, personality is good.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo first what Catherine said about a lot of it being luck. Like, frankly, the people who get accepted aren't going to be like the very, very, very best in stats and everything. Like, there's a lot of luck involved. I'm not going to pretend that I like am more deserving than somebody who didn't get in. Like last year, there was there was 250,000 people who applied for an internship at Goldman Sachs. Only 1.5% were accepted. That's about 3,000 something, 2,500, 3,600, I don't know. I was one of those interns. Do I believe that I was one of the 3,500 people better than the other 250,000 people? Obviously not. Like, there's bound to be one person who was better than me out of the 250 people who weren't accepted. 250,000 people who weren't accepted. That's just statistics, you know, inevitability. It's obvious. But it's still luck. There's a lot of luck involved. There's so much of that involved. As for high school and to college, I guess this is a tough question for me to say on what my application is, just because I've been to so many universities. I'll first give a quick background. When I graduated from high school, like I said, I was like a C student. I was not very good, frankly. I went to the University of Houston, which is the local university where I live in Texas. And I went there for 3 semesters where I flunked out with a 0.86 GPA. So I am a college dropout. I was there for 3 semesters studying mechanical engineering, and I simply didn't care about anything except for mechanical engineering. I had an A in all my mechanical engineering classes. I had Fs in every other class, 0.86 GPA. Dropped out for a semester. During that semester, I had a back surgery. I went through some more of my own mental trauma to kind of manage. And then I went to community college the following summer. That is June 2017. I was at my community college for 3 semesters where I maintained a 4.0 GPA, studying science, studying mathematics, applied mathematics. And then I went to Harvard University for 1 semester, and then I transferred to Columbia. So I've been all over the place. I've been at state universities, I've been at community colleges, I've been at arguably the best school in the world, and then I'm at Columbia right now. So I've been all over the place, and I will say, like, when it comes down to it, it's just telling a story and being your genuine self. To get into Columbia now, I think my application was just, my essay was just saying, this is where I've been and this is where I want to go. I think that you guys will help me achieve where I want to go, more or less. Like, I'm obviously summarizing. If I wrote that, I don't think I'd have gotten accepted. But the idea is you know, being really genuine, being really understanding exactly where you want to, what you want to do, where you want to go. And then I guess I expressed in a very clear and concise way why I think that Columbia University is the right school for me to do what I want to do. And that more or less sums up what I think was like the reason why I was accepted to some extent.
Yeah, those are all really, really good pieces of advice, and I think definitely can help answer some more questions for all of our students here today. And next, I think Lynn has another question from the registration.
All right, let's begin with the questions we had from our Google form that we sent out. So, how would you guys evaluate your fit with a college? For example, what would you pay attention to on a college tour? And are there any special needs student accommodations in your school? Let's start with you, Brian.
I think evaluating fit really comes down to thinking about, you know, like, what do you want out of college? And then what does this place have that like somewhere else might not have? Which I know is like really vague advice, but once you start kind of looking at schools, you'll kind of get an idea of like what I mean by like how some schools might be like slightly different than other ones in certain ways. And like the ways that like matter to you, like you'll notice, like it's very different for everyone. I know the question had like something about like college tours specifically. Tour, at least like on the sheet, it seems like it does. Tours, I think you should take with like a big grain of salt. Like everything from like the weather that day to like which people you run into will have a very big effect on like how you subjectively perceive the college. Like I remember when I visited West Point, it was like rainy and cloudy and I hated it. But when I went to the Naval Academy, it was like sunny. And like that honestly played a very big role in which like how I perceived each school. But like obviously the weather has like zero effect on like anything. I'd say like if you do go on a tour, really try to talk to students that have been there. try to like, just look at things that are kind of like beneath the surface in a sense to kind of like get a better idea of like how you would perceive the college on like any given day. Also, like I'm not very like, I can't give good advice on this. Like I decided my college on like a coin flip and I visited like 2 places. But as for special needs students, at least at Princeton, and I think at a lot of colleges now, they are very accommodating with a lot of things. So Princeton we have an Office of Disability Services that basically will like help you help you adapt really any part of your school. So for example, I know some people with like learning disabilities have additional time on tests. One of my friends broke his hand and they got him a scribe to follow him around and write his notes for him. Like a lot of these colleges, like they go, I guess like depending on the school, it's a very school by school, case by case basis. But a lot of schools do offer very extensive accommodations for people with special needs.
For how I chose, I mean, like, yeah, basically what Brian says, it's kind of vague because every person's different. But I'll just like talk about my specific experience, I guess. But like I applied like during the college application process, I knew I wanted to be pre-med. So I tried to look for schools that had like strong research and stuff like that, like strong STEMs and like classes and stuff. So that's how I mostly picked Hopkins. Gonna be honest, a lot of it was just kind of like I vibe with it. So I can't really explain too much why. But yeah, as for college tours, I mean like they're nice. They're not super important. The only college tours I went on were the ones where like the colleges look at demonstrated interest. But yeah, like college tours are good. One big thing is probably like location. Because I mean obviously like prestige and stuff are all probably things that matter to us. But like if you don't like the heat and you go to like say Rice just because it's a good school, you're probably not going to enjoy your time there because it's going to be really hot. So look beyond just like the college and how good it is and stuff. You also have to look at the location around. Like I like Baltimore. I feel like Baltimore gets a really bad rep, but like the weather's pretty nice, and as long as you're not stupid, like you're not going to get shot. So, and yeah, and then as for like accommodating disabilities, I mean, I'm very lucky, I'm like able-bodied and stuff. I can get around easily. But like as the stuff I've noticed, all of our doors have like the automatic like open button things for like people who like have wheelchairs and stuff like that. And there are a lot of stairs, but I'm pretty sure there are like specific ways like people can go around to avoid the stairs. I just haven't noticed because like I said, I'm lucky, I'm able-bodied. I can just get around pretty easily. So yeah, like Brian said, it's also like pretty vague, but that's just because every person's different. So I guess just like make a list of stuff you want to see and try to find colleges that fit that list. So yeah.
I just want to quickly interject. Like she brought up 2 really good points, like reminded me of 2 things. One is with the fit, do not just pick a school because like some program is ranked really well. Like I know like a lot of parents specifically, like I'm looking at you parents in high school, like obsessed over like rankings of like specific majors and programs. And like unless you're like Catherine, like you absolutely are going to be pre-med, like do not pick a school based on that, because I think like upwards of like 70-80% of people switch majors in undergrad. And like for example, if you go to say like one of those like tech schools that like exclusively focus on like computer science, you decide like, hey, maybe I don't want to do computer science, then you're kind of stuck in a place where you won't be supported or happy, or like you're not really getting what you're signing up for in a sense. So really like try to consider like the general fit more than just like individual rankings. Also rankings are like super arbitrary, like they don't actually matter. The second one is like location is also I think very important. If you like have like any vague idea of like what jobs you want to get, you should really take that into consideration, because for example, like I'm sure like Dylan has noticed this too. Like if you're like into like finance, for example, you probably want to be like on the coasts or like at least near like New York City or something like that. Like I think that definitely provides a big advantage for like those industries. Or like if you're really into like tech or like you want to do like startup stuff, like the Bay Area, like those schools will be much better in terms of like entrepreneurship and like that sort of culture than say like Princeton. But just like it's like another thing to keep in mind. Like what is around the school and like the sort of culture that exists on that school, like what people tend to go into. Like you'll find like a lot of like East Coast schools are very big in like finance, consulting, like that type of stuff. And like if that's what you like, that's great. If that's not, no, it's something worth considering before you like commit 4 years of your life and like $200,000 to like go to a place.
Yeah, I think both what Brian and Catherine said, good points. Won't take away from those. No need to add to that either. I guess just on a separate note, check if the culture is a good fit for you. Like, are you a person who likes to like have like school pride? Is that something that's important to you? Are you a sentimental person? Do you care about these things? Because like, frankly, Columbia's like culture is not very big. Like we have we have like 2 traditions and that's about it. Some schools like have really tight knit communities that are built out like Harvard's little houses. Like they kind of have like house dinners and stuff. Like these are things that do kind of matter to like how you experience it. And the way to find out whether or not these things do exist is not to like listen to what they say on the college tour because they're just trying to sell it to you. I would recommend browsing like subreddit for the school, like reddit.com/r/ whatever school it is. Like it take everything you read with a grain of salt because typically it's people who either have really good experiences, really negative experiences, but you can at least kind of see what the general like sentiment is. Same with like there's a confessions pages for almost every school that I know of. And just like kind of browsing that and seeing what people are complaining about because that's all they do anyways. That's what we humans do is complain. Knowing what people complain about in that school might be important to you. Like, okay, like this is actually something I really don't want to deal with. Like, a lacking administration or something like that. That's something that you might want to consider. In terms of specifically Columbia, like accessibility and whatnot, I mean, there is a reasonably supportive administration when it comes to like the big stuff. If you do need support, this past semester, for example, I was robbed at knife point, and the administration was really supportive about that. They like gave me access to a lot of resources. They got me emergency housing because I guess I called the police and I denied the people who like robbed me knew where I lived. And so I was like in a witness protection program sort of thing. But Columbia like did that for me, you know, like they were like, you know what, like it was right next to campus, so kind of on them. And then they were willing to provide like psychological services, everything that you really needed. You know, it was just provided because it was a sore need after getting robbed at knife point. It's a pretty traumatic experience. Really fun. I remember I called my dad and he was like, "Oh, a good life experience," and that was it. And I was like, "All right, thanks, Dad." But anyways, yeah, there's certainly a lot of resources that you can find. A lot of universities do provide them to varying extents, and it really is as Brian said, it's a case by case, school by school basis. But there are a lot of resources out there, and sometimes you just have to reach out and get them.
I think one actionable thing that like everyone can do is like definitely make a list of like your priorities when it comes to what you want in a school, and like really, you know, like be able to articulate like which ones matter the most to you, because you probably won't be able to get all of them. It's like, you know, for example, if you're someone like if weather matters a lot to you, if you know the academic support, like the school size, if those things matter to you, like make a list them like by priority. Like, you know, if you really don't want to get robbed at knife point or something like that, like really make sure you go into the process knowing what you're looking for. Like, for example, for me, one of the biggest things was like how the school's ROTC program was, because I knew like I was doing that in college. And like I couldn't go to Stanford because theirs wasn't hosted on campus. It's like nothing else mattered just because like there was that one deal breaker. Or like if you know like you can't deal with the cold, then like maybe don't go to like Maine or something, because like Catherine said, you won't be happy there. But just like make sure you go in knowing what you want. I think like the biggest mistake a lot of people make is like they kind of start looking at colleges and like they don't really know what they're looking for, and as a result they don't really find what they're looking for either.
One thing I forgot to mention, like the college tour stuff, like I briefly touched upon it, but like don't really pay attention to what your tour guide tells you. Like at least at Hopkins, our tour guides get paid. and like they're not going to want to lose their job, so they're not going to tell you like all the bad stuff about Hopkins. They're just going to try to hype it up because that's what they're supposed to do. So like tour guides are very much like they're like crafted to try to lure you in and stuff like that. So like don't listen to them. Just go online, like listen to like other people who are not being paid by the university to sell that to you. And also another thing, campus size is like also pretty important, which I know is like very specific. But for me, like I knew I wanted to go to a small school where like, you know, you get smaller class sizes once you get past like the intro lecture stuff. Like I do not think I would have done well at like a school where even as a senior, you're sitting in like classes with 100 to 200 other people. So I feel like that's something that's like, I feel like it's a lot bigger than like a lot of people think it is. So that's also important.
Okay, so one of our last questions is going to be, do you think your college provides you sufficient support in learning? And how helpful are professors and teaching assistants in getting you up to speed and overcoming challenges?
Keep in mind, my answer is going to be very, very biased because, like Catherine, I'm a big proponent of small schools. Princeton is a very small school. Like it's roughly like 1,400 people a class. Like I'm in classes where it's like 10 kids. And I think one plus side of a small school like that is you get a lot more attention from your professors and like they are a lot more accessible. Like for example, if you're in a school with where like the only class is like 400-person lectures, it's going to be a lot, like generally speaking, it's going to be harder to find like the right support than if you're like exclusively in classes with like 15, 20 people. And also like these are things that you can kind of research beforehand, like kind of like Dylan mentioned, like go on Reddit, go talk to people at these schools. And again, like it's a very school by school thing. So like you can definitely figure out, you know, like, does this school tend to have professors that like support their students? Does this school have like a learning environment / style that like works for me? And at least like, no, again, it's different for everyone, but I would strongly suggest considering the benefits of a small school because they do provide a lot of benefits a big school can't.
I mean, I've only been at Hopkins at one semester. I took like 6 classes and 2 of them are labs. So I don't have as much experience as, you know, most people there because I've only been there for like a very short amount of time. But if I'm gonna be completely honest, the classes like are mid. Like the professors are cool and everything, but like I feel like you could probably get the same level of like education at like a state school. I think for me, the main reason why I chose Hopkins was because of like the resources there. Because as a small university who's like super big on research, that's gonna be easy to get for me compared to like a big school like OSU. So I think, yeah, like if you are only there because you want to go to good classes, like, you know, that every single college classes are about the same. I'm sure at Hopkins, like once you get to the upper like years, you'll have like smaller classes and stuff like that. But like, I don't know, like the academics on its own, just it's just there. But like the resources and stuff are what I think are important. So like Brian said, like at a small school, you do get more attention. Like we have like free counseling, I think, and stuff like that. I haven't taken advantage of it yet, but I definitely will at some point. So yeah, I mean the professors are nice. Like my bio professor was great. He like you could tell that he was passionate, but it was still, you know, like just a lecture class. So yeah, my calc professor was bad. So but yeah, just like yeah, I guess just like be realistic. Don't expect that just because you go to a top school, you'll be getting like top of the class educations. I think the most important part of top schools are like the resources that come with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go ahead and second that. I've run the gamut of what sort of schools you can go to, you know, state college, community college, Ivy. The only one I haven't been at is a liberal arts college, and I don't imagine it's too different from an Ivy, just maybe a little less of resources, given that it's not as big. But I would go ahead and say that, yeah, like the educational experience you get at an Ivy League university isn't that different from a community college. In fact, I'll go ahead and say it, hot take, my best classes were at my community college. Like I enjoyed talking to my professors. I enjoyed taking these classes from my professors far more at community college than I did at Columbia. I think a large part of that is because at Columbia or at any university, there are researchers. Your professors are researchers first and foremost. Teaching is a side gig that they're supposed to do, but their priority is research. At a community college, they're there because they want to teach. Like your professors are just teachers. They're not researchers. They may have done research before, but no longer. All they want to do is teach, and that's like a key difference because being an educator and being an expert in your field are completely different things. And I think oftentimes people don't understand that because these professors that I have at Columbia, sure, like they're experts of their fields. Like I remember my stats professor, he like is considered like the father of a certain type of statistics. You know, like he's like he created his own like code base for like a certain type of like regression, but like it sucks. Like it wasn't good. He just made it for like experts, like people who are learning it. Like we're students. Like I'm a college student and we don't know how this stuff works yet. We're still learning it. And it just was poorly made. And he expected us to use it. And you can't look it up because everything that is written about it is by him. And so you can't Google it, you can't YouTube it. There's no one on YouTube, there's no Khan Academy that can save you. And it just kind of sucks. And they're just too smart for their own good sometimes to teach people who aren't experts in their field. So if you're looking for an educational experience, honestly, I would recommend community college. I mean, like at least consider it. You know, it's certainly a great thing to do for 2 years and then figure out exactly where you want to go after that. And it's a lot cheaper. Like one semester at community college is like $1,000 for me. One credit at Columbia is $2,000. You take usually 15 credits, so you can do the math on that. And then yeah, so I would go ahead and say that like the educational experience itself, it doesn't differ school to school. It's just professors. Like they're the only thing that actually like differentiates what sort of educational experience you get. You can take like a really great class from a department in a really great school that's known to teach this subject, but you have this like really bad professor and there's nothing you can do about it. You might have a decent support system. Office hours are always important. Like you should go to every single office hour you can. Like if it's available, you should go. Obviously don't waste your professor's time by like not having a list of questions or like having some level of questions ready for him or her. But don't go into this like don't ever just take a class and not try and participate beyond the classroom setting. Like just attending lectures won't get you anywhere. Or okay, sure, you might be able to like do decently in the class, but to really succeed, to really understand the subject matter, especially if it's something that you're interested in, go to office hours. Usually they're very supportive there, and it gets the professor and the TA teaching staff to kind of know who you are, and as a result, like, you know, help you out a bit. I know like today, like this past semester, I was the only person who showed up to office hours every single week for one of my TAs. And at the end of the semester, she just like gave me a free 100 on like she created a fake assignment and gave me 100 on it. I was like, I know I didn't like this wasn't an assignment, but okay. And it's just like, yeah, thanks for coming to office hours. And I was like, oh, okay, like I guess. So like they really do appreciate it, you know. It's something that they're passionate about, something that they want to teach too. So that's always nice.
Kind of going back to the fit thing, two more like low-key statistics I think that are very important to look at are one, your school's endowment like per person. That like does kind of correlate to how much like they're willing to like spend on you and to like kind of help your development. And two, like the grad student to undergrad student ratio. I think that one is one that people don't really look at, but is like quite important. That was actually like the main reason I ended up picking Princeton, because we have like almost like no graduate students. And like Dylan mentioned, that plays a big role into like what your professors prioritize. So I'm a big UPenn hater, so like I'm biased. But like, for example, UPenn and Harvard, like they're like graduate school farms. Like they have like many times more grad students than their undergrads. And funny enough, a lot of people complain about how their professors are hard to reach. And, you know, I wonder why, right? Like these are schools where graduate research is a priority and you are not the priority. So just like things like that are worth looking at. Like, no, it's different per professor, but those are two stats I think that are like really important to at least like consider. And also kind of going off of what Dylan said, I think the biggest, if not like only differences between these like quote unquote elite schools and the rest of them are like, one, like maybe resources, and two, just like the people you'll get to meet and know. Like the quality of education is really not that different. Like for example, at Princeton, Alan Blinder teaches intro to microeconomics. So he, like, if you don't know who he is, he was like the vice chair of the Federal Reserve like a few years ago. Cool guy, really terrible teacher. But a rec letter from Alan Blinder probably carries a lot more weight than like a random professor from the random place. So again, like you're not going to benefit from him, like he has like dementia, like you're not going to benefit from him teaching you, but you are going to benefit from like his rec letter, for example, or like him backing you through like your career. So, like things like that are like the real differences, I want to say, like between these like top schools and alumni, obviously, like, who you will be able to kind of like connect with. Just like things like that are like the main differences. You're really not going to get that much better of like an education realistically. Like I did dual enrollment at like OSU and OU, and like the classes were more or less the same. Yeah.
Well, Brian, Catherine, Dylan, our amazing panelists, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and advice. There's definitely a lot of information to take away. And thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. And be sure to check out AACO Columbus Internship Program.
Thank you, guys. Great job.
Thank you, all the panelists. Learned so much from you all. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, everybody, for attending tonight's meeting. Go to aacohio.org and check under special events to look for information in terms of Columbus internship program. Thank you.